You're listening to the Holistic Business and Life Mastery Show. I'm your host, Supriya Roy. Welcome back to a brand new episode. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Dr. Kausthub Desikachar, grandson of Sri Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, who is the Grand Master of modern day yoga. Now, if you've never practiced yoga or any sort of pranayama, then you're going to be in for a delight and learn exactly how it can benefit you in increasing your performance, your mental health, as well as your overall life experience. It is a practice that I often teach my clients and students that are wanting more from their life, that are wanting to improve their energy. And also, it's a great self-management tool. If you are a coach, speaker, or any sort of teacher or facilitator, breathing skills can benefit you in staying calm, centered, as well as, put your best foot forward. Not only that, in our general day-to-day relationship management or just having a good relationship with our experiences is starting with your breath. So without further ado, this is Dr. Desikachar sharing the untold secrets of pranayama in the Viniyoga tradition. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode at the Holistic Business and Life Mastery Show. And today I have a very special guest, Dr. Kausthub Desikachar. You may have heard our last episode with him, which was the Viniyoga tradition and the modern era, from 29th of January in 2022. So that's a while back, but we're so lucky to have him back again. Welcome, Dr. Desikachar. How are you?
Namaste. Hi, I'm good. I did not realize that it was so long ago. Yeah, 2022. My God, that's a long time ago.
It was, and it was such a delightful episode you gave us on the modern era and the Viniyoga tradition. And, I had such good feedback from so many people on that one. So we had to ask you to come back.
I'm happy to be back.
Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year.
And
Yes.
what are you doing this year? I heard you're coming to Melbourne.
Yes, I'm coming to Melbourne to teach a 3-day event. The topic will be it's a very important topic now. What do we call stability in changing times using the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. Yeah, which is very
Wow.
important now because our world is needing a lot of stability, right? So many conflicts and so many changes so fast. We can't,
Yes.
we need to anchor ourselves. So, what does yoga teach to help us anchor ourselves? That's going to be the topic of the event.
Great. Thank you. So it's called Mangala Studios. This is based in Melbourne, Carlton.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a chance to meet Dr. Desikachar in person to teach you a workshop on this. I think it's a seminar, isn't it? It's not just a workshop.
Seminar. It's a seminar for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, wow. Yes. So if you're based in Melbourne or you want to go down during these holidays, please do. I'll link it below and go ahead and check that out. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Desikachar, if you don't know, if you're the first time hearing of him, so he is running the Viniyoga tradition practices at the KHYF and also the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram programs. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, just for the new listeners that are tuning in today?
Yeah, sure. I actually now I'm based in Singapore and I run here my organization that is Viniyoga Singapore. And of course, I'm also having my base in India with the Krishnamacharya Healing and Yoga Foundation. What we are essentially offering is we are offering the classical tradition of yoga, which is mainly focused on individualized teaching. for people, because as you know, we are all very, very different, and that's why what yoga works for one will not work for the other. So that is basically what is the essential heart of the Viniyoga tradition, which it actually comes from the source teaching of Patanjali himself, because the word Viniyoga is part of the Yoga Sutra, and he says that we have to adapt the teaching according to the people. And so it's based on this teaching that we are doing teachings where we are not only offering one-to-one yoga classes, yoga therapy classes for people with different illnesses, but also we train teachers and we train therapists to become teachers and therapists following the Viniyoga teachings. And the other core part of the Viniyoga tradition is we are also not just using one tool of yoga, which is what most yoga studios are doing, asana practices, but we
Mm.
are encompassing the whole range of yoga tools that are presented by Patanjali and the other great acharyas. And and the last important feature of the Viniyoga tradition, which I think is perhaps in my view the most important, is our tradition is rooted in Indian philosophy rather than trying to fit yoga through the modern science, because yoga will not fit through the modern science, especially because modern science did not exist at the time yoga was uh, created. So trying to understand yoga through modern science is like a blind trying to follow a blind man. It will not work. So that's one of the key things as well we do, is we are very focused on the philosophical roots of yoga, which is what makes us very unique and special, because most modern yoga studios try to find bits and pieces of information from here and there, and all the gaps they are trying to fill up from other sources, which doesn't really make quite a good sense. So, in a sense, Viniyoga is a more pure tradition or classical tradition from its philosophical roots. So, that's how I would describe the work we are doing.
So well explained. It's so great. And for those of you that have never explored yoga as, or more than the asana or the posture practice, a lot of people in our audience group do practice yoga, but I would say they're practicing it at a studio, in the modern way, which is great. It's a good start. I think many of us did start, those of us that were not in the traditional environment. Yeah. And so today's topic is going to be about one of the other parts of yoga practice, which is pranayama. And I thought you would be the perfect expert to bring on this topic, because that's where I learned pranayama, to do it traditionally, to do it properly and without the pressure of doing gymnastics with it, and trying to, yeah, do something that could possibly harm me. But it has been a big tool on my journey, and I get a lot of questions about pranayama, and what it is, and what it can do for us, for those of us that are not practicing yoga very seriously. But it can definitely help us in on a day-to-day level. So thank you for sharing your time with us today, and let's get started, if that's okay.
Sure.
So for those of you that don't know, yoga is an eight branched practice. There are 8 practices. Everything is leading to a focused mind, a meditative mind. Every practice is made to do that, isn't it, Dr. Desikachar?
Yes. Actually, 8 is the minimum. There are more practices that are presented in other chapters as well.
Yeah,
But you look at least if you take these 8 practices, eight limbs we call, uh, each one is supporting the other 7. So in a certain way, it's part of a holistic lifestyle approach rather than having a disconnected approach.
beautiful.
That is where my grandfather defined modern exercise as what he would call Anga Bhanga Sadhana, which means practices that are focused on certain limbs of the body, whereas yoga practice, we call it Sarvanga Sadhana, which in other way is what we call a holistic practice. So it's a holistic lifestyle oriented practice. It's not bits and pieces which we do, in our daily life that has no connection to the other. Yeah.
Mm. So let's get started with one of the questions that I get a lot. What is the difference between breath work and pranayama? Meaning, there's a lot of talk about breath work
Yeah.
nowadays.
I think the modern people like to give fancy names. So the breath work is one of the what we call uh, names that is now in the social media and scientific circles. But breath work is probably the basic level of the pranayama, the first level of pranayama, because normally we are unconsciously breathing as long as we are alive. We stop breathing when we are dead. So we are not working consciously with the breathing. And
Mm.
so it's a way to say, okay, now we are consciously working with our breathing. And I think in the modern era, people like to use this word work because work is such an important thing for modern people. Because even if you are exercising, they call it workout, and now it's
Mm.
breath work, then it's mind work. Everything is a work. And in a way, for me, that itself is the difference between breath work and pranayama, because pranayama is not really a work. Pranayama is what I would call the regulation of breath in a conscious manner, where we are flowing with the breathing consciously and not trying to work it. Because if you look at it very, very carefully, we cannot push the breath one way or the other beyond a certain capacity. So we go along with it, along with the breathing in a conscious way, and therefore in intrinsically extend it without working out. So when we actually achieve pranayama, we are not feeling tired or exhausted, but we are feeling energized. And this is where it's very fascinating, because the word breathwork suggests that we are working with the breathing. But pranayama, the word is we are working with prana, which is energy. With
Mm.
pranayama, we are actually working with, we are not working, but we are using our energy, we are influencing our energies. Whereas in breath work, the implication is that you are working on your inhale and exhale only.
Ah,
Now, pranayama
perfect.
does not exclude that, but it is not the complete package. In pranayama, because we are using certain subtle methods, we are working beyond just the breathing, we are influencing the energy systems of our body. And that is why it's called pranayama, which is the working on the prana, the extension of prana. It's not the extension of breath. The word breath is called shwasa in Sanskrit. But why did they not use the word shwasa yama for the breath work? Because they were not focused only on the breath. Breath was a medium through which they focused on influencing the energy systems of the body. That's basically a fundamental difference between breath work and pranayama. And I think when you work with pranayama in an appropriate manner, your energy systems will change. And of course, in the traditional systems like yoga, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, all these traditional systems, we look at body as energy systems, and we are only influencing the energy. We call it prana in the Indian tradition, and the Chinese call it chi in their system.
Mm.
Essentially, we are working on the energy systems of the body, so that the energy system will bring balance to the different parts of our body, of our mind, of our emotions, so that optimum health can be achieved on its own. And this is where the difference is. We are not just working with the breath in pranayama, we are using the breath to influence the energy systems of the body, and that is what is pranayama.
That is so it's very enlightening because brings me to the question that, you know, if someone were to have breathing problems, they can still practice pranayama.
Yes, of course. Actually, pranayama is one of the very, very, very good methods to actually um, influence many health conditions, especially respiratory conditions. I teach a lot of people who have problems like breathing problems, asthma, apnea, sleep apnea, etc., which are all one way or another breathing problems. And most of the central tool that I'm using is pranayama, and they have in most of the cases they have got their problems alleviated using these pranayama practices. However, again, like I said in the introduction, it has to be personalized because
Mm,
each person will need different techniques, slightly different techniques for not only their condition, but more importantly also for other parameters which make them unique, like their age, their stage of life, their constitution, other illnesses that they are having, what country or where they are living, because some people may be living in a country that is very humid, like I am now in Singapore, where the humidity is like 100% more or less all the time. Whereas Australia is a very dry country. It's very different from here and there. So all that will also influence our system, right? So
mm,
all that we need to take into consideration. But yes, definitely, pranayama is a very central tool that we are using in order to help people improve their respiratory issues as well. And this is also true for even people in sport. For
mm,
example, I have taught some students who have told me that after beginning pranayama practices, even their lung capacities have improved much more and their cardiac facilities have improved much more. And they are able to perform better in their sport, whether it's jogging or sport like cricket or tennis or things like that. They're breathing, they're not running out of breath as quickly as they would usually do in the past. So this has an impact on a very good impact on our primary respiratory system, but also on other systems, like because when we talk about energy, right? So the
mm.
respiratory system, we are connecting it to our heart chest region, which is very strongly connected to our immune system as well. So if we practice pranayama and it improves our respiratory and immune system, then all illnesses can get better with the practice of pranayama indirectly, because immune system is what is our system that fights all the illnesses. So if immune system becomes better, then respiratory problems are not the only ones that are going to get better. And that's why I've seen also people, I'm now a lot of students who have come since the COVID time, who have had long COVID, who have had a lot of respiratory issues. Pranayama practices have been very helpful for them to manage their symptoms in a more effective manner. So definitely this is a good tool for these kind of issues.
Thanks so much for clarifying that, because I think a lot of the times what I hear and see with people is they've come to assumptions that, you know, pranayama is a breathing practice, and if I can't breathe already, then I might strain myself, and there's a fear attached to doing anything else with an impaired system, you know, that's the respiratory system. So thank you. What I heard is that, you know, ultimately there's energy, and then there is breathing. You know, through breathing we can
Yeah,
increase our energy, or, you know, even deplete our energy if we are doing it not correctly, right?
correct.
Mm,
That's some of the common, what do you call, I would say, problems with pranayama practices, sorry, breathwork practices that are done inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
which is that you will see that the person starts to have labored breathing, or
Mm.
a shallow breathing, or a disturbed breathing. This is why, when you can know that they are just doing breath work, but in an inappropriate manner, because most people, they just watch some YouTube video, or they just do read some scientific papers where they are giving some kind of formula for the breathing, and they just do that, but that's not going to be useful for them. Because please, people have to remember that yoga practices are like prescriptions, like medication. You can't just take one prescription and just work for everybody the same way. Even if the illness is the same, even if four people have diabetes, the doctor doesn't give the same medication or the same dosage to all these four people, right? So that's why we need to be very careful in how we are breathing, because if we damage our breathing system by inappropriately breathing with these kind of rough techniques, the same logic of how it will help can have the opposite effect. If we damage our respiratory system, which is connected to the immune system, both immune system and respiratory system becomes
Mm.
weaker, then more illnesses will come than actually disappear. That's why in the yoga texts, they always say that when pranayama is applied appropriately, all illnesses disappear, or all illnesses can be addressed. Whereas when pranayama is practiced inappropriately, diseases can be created, because you are affecting your immune system to make it weaker. So that's why we need to be very careful. And to the first point that you said, like some people thinking that, oh, my breath is already shallow, I cannot work with it. That's not logical. Because let's say my muscles are weak. How do I make my
Mm.
muscles strong? By working on those muscles, right? So if I work on those muscles, then it becomes stronger. The same way, if I have a weak breath, I have to make, I have to work with the breathing. I have to use pranayama to make it stronger and more healthier. So a weak breath is actually a good prerequisite to practice pranayama, because it means you need it more than somebody
Mm.
who has a very strong breathing. Why would somebody having a strong muscle need to build more? There's no need. It's only the weak person who needs to work and make it stronger. So same logic for pranayama, the same logic for everything else, right? Like if you look at education itself, if your brain is not weak, strong, you need to have extra tuition classes, right? It's very common with in Asia, where children who are weaker in mathematics or chemistry or whatever, they're given more tuition classes extra, so that they are practicing, so that they are working on their brains more, so that their brain can learn. It's the same logic with our breathing.
Yes.
Weak breath is a good prerequisite for pranayama rather than a reason to avoid.
No, that's very well said. And I guess, for a person who's unaware of this concept of even, that the breath could be weak or the breath is not, what do you mean by that? Can you clarify a little bit about how can a normal person self-diagnose even that, my breathing is not supporting me? What kind of a role does it play in our day to day, and how does it
Yeah.
even become a priority in someone's life?
So there are a few ways in which we can see if our breathing capacity is weaker. Firstly, if we can consciously, we just lie down and consciously start to observe our breathing. If we see that in a lying position, our breathing is very short, like it cannot be extended beyond 2, 3 seconds, that's a very obvious sign that you have a weak breath, because your breath in a lying position, which is technically the most relaxed position, we should be able to extend it much longer. I would say if we can extend it to like 5, 6 seconds, you are not in trouble. But if you can extend it much longer to like 10, 12 seconds, then you're in really good health. This is a very, very simple test anybody can do. Just lie down in a relaxed position and not be in a stress or in a hurry, and just pay attention to your breathing. See how fast your inhale and how fast your exhale can be. Don't try to control it, but just observe it and see how shallow it is or how um, long it is. The second thing is how deep it's going. Is your breathing very only in the chest, or can you deep breathe all the way to and from the belly region? If you are unable to do from your belly region to your belly region, then we would say that the breath is shallow. Sometimes you may have a long breath, but a shallow breath because it doesn't go beyond the chest. For us to be able to breathe really long, deep, that means the diaphragm moves really low.
Mm.
That's what is called the deep breathing. Now, if the diaphragm cannot go much lower, deep breathing will not happen.
Mm.
Very often we breathe from the chest only, and that's what is another sign that everybody can observe. It's called the shallow breathing. So both these you can do in a lying position. Another test which I often give is very simple. Ask somebody to just climb one set of stairs and come back, just one up, one down, and observe the breathing. If you are gasping for breath after one flight of stairs up and down, then you know that your respiration capacity is a bit weak and you need to work on that. So these would be like three signs I would give when we are awake. When we are asleep, if we have problems like apnea, for example, or if we are snoring very heavily, it also means that we need to work on the respiratory capacity. The diaphragm is not moving very well, which could be through a number of reasons. A lot of people think that it's only because of obesity that we have this problem. It's not only obesity, there can be other reasons why we have problems of breathing during the sleep as well. But this is another thing which we can observe during the sleep, but not us, but maybe our partner or somebody, family member can tell us, hey, you are snoring too much, or unless we
Mm.
are waking up with the sound of our own snore, which is also possible that some
Yep.
people snore so loudly that they wake up. That also is a sign that the breathing is got some issues.
Yeah, so interesting. So I guess one can just tell, if they're having trouble just climbing a set of stairs, say even 5 to 10 steps and
Yeah.
coming down, you get huffy and puffy.
Yes.
On a practical level, here in Australia, we have to go do our own groceries and lift it up and take it home.
Well,
And
but that's why there is a lot of, in a modern society, we are a bit handicapped to check all this because, look, I live in the 20th floor. I don't take the stairs, I take the elevator, right? So I
mm,
would know I don't do the daily practice of climbing up and down the stairs. I mean, I usually, we don't have to do it, but I do it. I do it in my morning walks. I try to put some up and down climbs as well. And a lot of people also, you talk about shopping, they don't carry their bags.
yeah.
They are using the trolleys in the supermarket, from the supermarket to their car, and then they have like a trolley at home, or they have some facility at home. They hardly carry many things. So in the modern era, we are a bit handicapped to test these things. In the old days, it was very simple. I mean, even simple things like cleaning the window for 10 minutes, you see how your breathing is after
Mm,
that. We don't use a cleaning anymore. We don't do clean the floor. We have all those
no.
robots doing the cleaning now.
Yeah.
It's a robot. There is not even a vacuum cleaner in the past. At least you had to vacuum it literally with the vacuum pushing here and there. But now some robot is designed to do that job. So we just
Mm,
sit and watch Netflix, and that's what happens. And that's the problem. We don't self-observe.
yeah.
Self-observation is very important.
Yeah. So, okay. So if someone is, say, not watching Netflix, but they don't have a lifestyle which is letting them or encouraging them to observe their own breath. Let's go a little bit deeper than this and, talk about a person who is just working on something. They need to focus and their breath is not, supporting them. What is the actual cause of this? It could be they don't have any, physical ailments as such, and it's just happening
I
automatically.
There could be a number of things. I don't want to say that they don't have physical ailments. They don't have physical ailments that is bothering them enough. Like there are a whole range of problems like blood pressure, for example, diabetes, for example, obesity, for example, that doesn't create pain. It's not like back pain or neck pain that creates pain. So people may live without pain, but it doesn't mean that they are disease free. But then there are also a number of illnesses like psychological problems like depression, anxiety, which does not create physical problems, but it creates an impact on the breathing. So there could be a number of illnesses that they do have that they are not bothered by. I always feel that in modern era we give the excuse that we are so busy working, again the word work,
Yeah.
because and therefore we don't have time to self-observe. My theory is that's just an excuse. My practice for myself and what I recommend to many of my students is the first thing in the morning to wake up, and this is what I do when I wake up. I definitely like my morning coffee. I'm not like a living like a saint, but I do have a morning coffee. But I have an old morning coffee machine, which is the Italian style. It takes about 5 6 minutes for it to brew. It takes about 7 minutes to brew. So the moment I turn on that, I sit in my sofa. It's still dark in the morning because it's early in the morning. Those 7 minutes, I observe myself. Can people not do that? I think everybody can afford 7 minutes of investment for themselves every day. I mean, just observe 5 6 minutes in the morning, your breathing, how your mind is feeling on that day. Did you get enough sleep? Did you not get enough sleep? How your body feels. 5 6 minutes of self-observation, I think is fantastic. Rather than just go to the phone first thing in the
Yeah.
morning, we just do that self-observation for 5 minutes. Everybody can do it.
And so for the people that don't have that value system, or they are not aware that there could be some n- not so obvious ailments in progress, where and they may not have been diagnosed, that their health tests are all good, blood tests are all good, they are fairly conscious of their lifestyle, but then there is this tendency to have anxiety, an anxiety prone mind. They'll happily admit that because it's such common language these days. Um, a lot of talk of trauma or
Trauma is a big
PTSD.
cause. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything such as that. We are conscious of these things happening. Psychological problems are so much in the modern conversation circles now. But I'm just wondering, how would one know how to prioritize this thing that's an essential by what you've just said? And my own practice, I know it's an essential to have energy at the end of the day to do the things that I want to do. How do I, if I've never done it, if never, no one in my environment is saying that, it's so
So
easily
here's where I
not
differ.
valued.
Yeah, here's where I differ slightly from the modern people's thinking or the way modern science and things like that works. I don't like to ask the question, why is this a problem or why they have suffering from this? I look at this as how can I solve it or what can I learn
Mm,
from it or how can I solve it? Now, I give this metaphor to my students uh, because I think it's a very simple way to understand it. Now, let's say, for example, and this is a real problem I had a few years ago in my house here. I had a problem with my water leakage. There was some kind of blockage in the plumbing, and the water was overflowing. And I had no idea how to fix it. I was trying, and it was not working. I tried all the usual techniques, it didn't work. So I called the plumber, and he also tried for 1 or 2 hours. He could not find where the problem was. So what he did was he put one kind of chemical, a special chemical, like a little ball into the pipe, and then he let it settle for like 10 15 minutes, and then he started flushing the water, and then the water problem disappeared. So I said, what is the problem? He said, I don't know, sir, but the problem is fixed, just be happy. right? Now, that's the same in our body. Now, if you look at our body is a set of plumbing equipment. There is respiratory channels, there is blood circulation channels, there's fluid circulation channels like lymphatic fluid, etc. So all these are like plumbing in our body. Now, sometimes we have blockages. This is what yoga language is saying. There are blockages to the flow of prana. There are blockages to the flow of blood. There are blockages to the flow of fluids. They are talking about these blockages. Why do we have these blockages? We don't always know.
Beautiful.
Unresolved trauma, maybe bad diet, maybe some illnesses that we have not yet seen. We don't know. But what's important is that we remove the blockage, and that's where pranayama comes. That's why we have pranayama like nadi shodhana, etc., which say it removes the blockages in the channels. So as long as I am benefiting from the removal of blockages, I'm happy, because even if I don't know what the problem is, I see that the problem is no more there. That's why I always tell my students, one of my mantras, look, you don't know what has changed, but you can feel the change.
Yeah, be happy with that.
Because sometimes we don't know what that issue is, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what that issue is, because sometimes unresolved trauma is not only trauma from our lifetime, but what we inherit from our previous generational. That's what we call vasana in yoga. And now modern psychology is talking about this called transgenerational trauma.
Yeah.
So, what is bothering me at a certain moment, I cannot always pinpoint to. The more important thing is, what do I do with it? How can I resolve that problem? And that is where beautiful techniques in pranayama can help, because our body is like a plumbing system. It has got so many channels. It's got fluids are flowing, breath is flowing. We need to solve this problem. And that is where pranayama is very effective, because we won't know what has been removed, but we can feel a change. We can feel a change. Yeah.
Superb. I've loved that analogy of the plumbing and yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of study and research, they're doing on breathing now and the power of pranayama even. Can you tell us a little bit about this, and what are some of the things that we should know, the common lay person needs to understand in your own traditional perspective as well? Can you shed some light on what
I
are the
think that
essentials?
that all the research is being done now about breathing and pranayama, etc. But just same like in medicine, just because one drug works, they've proved that research says one drug works. We won't use the same drug in the same quantity for everybody, right? We will actually have to make sure that it's an appropriate fit for that person. We all know that metformin is good for diabetes. Yet, why do all doctors don't prescribe metformin for every diabetic patient? They vary the medication, they vary the dosage, because people require something different, unique, that is a good fit for them. It's the same with the research in pranayama practices. Just because you find a research paper that says, well, this pranayama is good for this, it doesn't mean that you have to practice that same pranayama as was in the study, because you're not the same as the subject of the study. So we need to make sure that the pranayama is a good fit for you. And that is where we need to have teachers who guide us in the pranayama practice. Just like we won't take a research paper to the pharmacy and say, hey, pharmacy, this research tells me metformin is
Mhm.
good for me, so just give it to me. The same way, we need to seek help from teachers who know pranayama to help us choose the appropriate fit of what pranayama will work for us. I think that's what we have to be careful about, and not just standardizing, that research said this, that research said this. The research may be valid, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's a good fit. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And it's really, really good to have that as a boundary as well for self care. Yeah. With
Exactly.
one more question, I just want to backstep a little bit about breath work. Again, I get this question, so I want to bring that up for the sake of my students, right? Um, so there's a lot of advertising going on about do breath work to clear trauma, do breath work to, get this benefit, that benefit. What do you what should we know about this sort of promise and this sort of practice?
It's easy to be skeptical about this, but there are many layers to this. We cannot understand this in just like a black or white situation. Um, yes, deep breathing work is one of the ways through which we can resolve trauma. Unresolved trauma can be helped with this. At the same time, again, it has to be an appropriate fit. And breath work is just one tool, because what is also needed is holding space for the person. Now, when we work with breathing practices, sometimes hidden trauma can get woken up, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be re-traumatizing for some people, in which case we have to be very careful. So in India, we have a saying where we say we don't know which snake is in which pit, right? So in the same way, we don't know which trauma is in which person and when it'll be woken up. We don't know. That's why holding space is very important. So I would say in work like trauma care and things like that, especially one-to-one work is very important. We need to work with the students one-to-one, and we need to work with the students regularly so that we can hold space for them when such experiences happen, so that we can help them, support them during those moments, so that their re-traumatization is not having an adverse effect, but rather we can somehow pacify them, or support them in the process of dealing with that and learning from those experiences. And this is where I think there is the two sides. Yes, there is great value of pranayama in working with trauma, but again, the dangers of working with it in an inappropriate way are far worse as well. So we need to actually be very, very careful. We need to be very careful. It's like a surgeon with a knife, if the surgeon is careful with the knife, he or she can do a very good surgery. But if they are not careful with the knife, they can kill the person. Even if they are just
Mm,
careless and they just drop the knife, it can kill the person. So we need to be very careful, because every tool that is very profound and has very strong impact can be greatly advantageous if it's used in the right way, can also have the opposite effect in the wrong way. That's why all these advertisement based thing I would be very skeptical about, because we can't really offer these kind of treatments in a standardized way, in a general way that works for everybody, saying, oh, do this
mm,
issue of breathing, all your trauma will disappear. It's not true.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's what I'm hearing, and I want the audience to get confirmation on is that it's a tool of
Yeah.
personal transformation, and it requires practice. It requires knowing yourself,
Yeah.
rather than just thinking that it's a benefit based strategy, which you can do like everybody else and do it on YouTube and you'll
Exactly.
be cured. It's probably not the right idea about pranayama.
Yeah.
Mm. Before we go into learning more about the Viniyoga tradition, because it's so based in such uh, natural healing process, and the values are so valuable. What can you tell us about the role of breath or breathing, not breath or breath, the role of breath, prana, in daily life? What is the role of it that we need to bring to our intention daily, to
I think
to get the maximum out of ourselves daily, like living our best life? How does the role of breath and pranayama help us? Yeah.
I think breath is very central to our daily life because it's the best mirror for how we are feeling at the moment. One
Mm.
way. And it's also the best way to be present in the present moment. When you want to, like, there's a lot of talk now about, oh, be in the present moment. People talk, be in the present moment. Nobody sees how to be in the present moment. The best way to be in the present moment is follow your breath, because breath is the only thing that can bring us back to the present moment. However, we can't be focused on the breath all the time because we have our work to do, our dharma to do, our family life to lead, etc. So my suggestion always is to actually take twice or thrice a day a few minutes, like maybe 5 minutes or 6 minutes of time for yourself, where you focus on the breathing, where you do breath practices like pranayama practices, 5 6 minutes in the morning, 5 6 minutes in the afternoon, 5 6 minutes in the evening. 3 times a day is enough, which will impact the rest of the day. So when I do the pranayama practices in the morning first, when I finish my asana practice, I see that it sustains me till the first part of the day. Then I do my second pranayama practice perhaps in the afternoon time. I see that it sustains me for the next part of the day. So that there's two things that happen. One is it gives me energy for the next part of the day, but also it's like a mirror for how I'm feeling from the effect of the previous part.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, what did that do to me? When I start working with my breathing, I can see, my God, my breath is so shallow, so I must have been stressed before. So now I
Mm.
make sure that I'm more conscious, that I'm not stressed. Whereas if the breath is already very long, I know, okay, the last part was not very stressful. I can actually be, I've done a good, I can really take it for granted that, well, that part was good because my breath is not agitated. So it's a very good mirror as well. So that's why I would often suggest that take 2 to 3 times a day. It's enough to practice 5 to 6 minutes to start with. We don't need to do long. And my effort, my my belief is that this is a very good strategy because if people can see how much benefit they're getting from 5 minutes of practicing breathing 2 times a day, when they start seeing those benefits, they will automatically be inclined to do a little longer. So maybe they'll extend it to 10 minutes and maybe they'll extend it to 15 minutes. And that is great. If we can eventually come to a place where we can devote 15 minutes of time in the morning, 15 minutes of time in the evening for some pranayama practices per day, our life quality will improve so much, so much. But to start with, 5 minutes is enough. I think people can afford 10 minutes a day for themselves. If not, I don't think who can, I wonder who can help them. Right.
I love it. I love it. And it is so accessible to all of us. I mean, you can set a reminder on your phone to be doing that in your schedule daily as a starting point, if it's not in your self-care practice. And also just getting into this habit of empowering yourself to be in charge of your own mind, your own emotional well-being. Like you said, I mean, as soon as you mentioned that, whatever I've gone through the first third of my day, checking in and seeing that this is how it made me feel, or this is how I'm feeling after that. Geez, that's such a good check in point before I take myself to the next experience. I mean, in our client base group, they're all service providers. This can be such a good tool between clients, between people serving people, between going from work to home,
Yeah,
between going from children to spouse, between going from cooking to sleeping, and all of that.
I
So,
think that's very, very good because w- when you say that most of your clients are service providers, one of the common things that I notice, and this also was my own problem in the past, is that because I'm also a service provider, most service providers, they are in the habit of taking care of others, but not themselves.
Exactly.
And they have to realize that this is what I had to realize, that unless we take care of ourselves, we cannot be efficiently taking care of others. So that's why the care for the care provider is more important than the care for the care seeker, because the care providers have to provide care for themselves as well, and they should not forget themselves, because they are the ones holding the patients, holding the people who are receiving the care.
Yeah.
I think we need to do this as a responsibility as well. So
Mm.
yes, it's very important. I do it some days when I'm teaching a lot of one-to-one classes. There are sometimes I conduct some camps for 3-4 days where I'm seeing like 12, 13 students a day for therapy classes. I actually have a break after 3, 4 students where I do
Mm.
self-observation. And of course I have a coffee break, but I also do some
Mhm.
breathing, because that's a way to check how the first sessions went and what I have to energize for the next sessions as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can speak to this from a lesson I had to learn along my when I was teaching yoga full time. A mentor of mine said, "Look, you know, make sure you're not choking yourself while you are teaching, because
Exactly.
we tend to want to speak and help and do all of that." So one of the rules that she gave me was inhale and then speak.
That's a
And
good idea.
it's something that I take everywhere with me, because I imagine myself choking myself, and at the cost of what? Trying to help another is just so counterproductive. And then we speak of vasanas, like you brought up. I'm just probably re-traumatizing myself in some way or a form.
This is a typical problem with what is called the wounded healer. So
Mm,
we are a lot of people who are wounded. They are thinking that they can heal their wounds by healing others, which is actually re-traumatizing in the sense, because the problem they did not heal was because they did not receive care, and now they are repeating the same pattern of not receiving the care by not caring for themselves but caring for others. So in a way they are reinforcing the trauma, and becomes more difficult to heal. So they need to take care of themselves first before
yeah.
they can heal. So you can't heal yourself by healing others. It'll never work. It'll never
So
work.
powerful. So powerful in this day and age. It's so powerful. Often when someone is learning to become a teacher or a professional, I often tell them that this is not just another job. The healer's job is not a job. This is self work first. And but then you see that some people also get stuck in the loop of healing, 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 and never doing life.
Yeah.
So it is a balance of both. And I think what you gave us today is very powerful. Just give yourself a timer on your phone. Check in between events, meaning every segment of the day has a little bit of a segment in itself, to do a check in and just be interested in how you're feeling about it all.
Yeah, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon is
Yeah,
in to start with.
that is
Then we
awesome.
extend it. Five is not a big difficult ask. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Viniyoga tradition. What is the thinking behind it? You did mention a bit before, when we talk about pranayama, especially, um, the one of the things that I always share about the Krishnamacharya lineage is that Sri Krishnamacharya was a pioneer because he was able to master pranayama so much so that he held and stopped his own heart for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And is that right? And that's his mastery level that still inspires so many of us to understand that, wow, the power of pranayama is such it can take us to so many levels. And people that do diving, deep sea diving and everything like that, they're always asking me things like, I think breath retention has so much power in realizing so many fears that we hold. All sorts of latent fears come up. And it's through the practice of pranayama that I can master my mind and, sort of let go of all those and still be in the situation. It's so powerful and magical. Can you tell us a little bit, and the audience, like they don't know Krishnamacharya's lineage and the Viniyoga tradition, please shed some light on the tradition and what are some of the skill set that one can actually develop through learning this traditional practice.
So, as I explained earlier, one of the great things about the Viniyoga tradition is we follow this principle that Patanjali is giving us, which is the word Viniyoga, that means an appropriate utilization of the tools of yoga to suit the context. So, in a way, it's a context sensitive yoga. Everything has to be applied according to a context, whether it's in life, that's always context sensitive. What is appropriate in one context need not be appropriate in another context. Like we wear these kind of clothes for an interview like this, but we cannot go swimming with these clothes because that context is not the same. The same shoes you can't wear for a mountain that you can go for jogging or whatever, because the context is different. So this is what is Viniyoga is like. Not only is it teaching us the different tools of yoga individually, but more importantly, how to implement it in the appropriate context, considering various parameters like our constitution, our age, our gender, our responsibility in life, our stage of life, how old we are, what responsibilities we carry, the seasons we are living in, the illnesses we are carrying, the faith system that we have. Some of us may be believers, some of us may not be believers. So all this is considered so that we can appropriately apply the tools of yoga. So this is what is our primary, what you call teaching system, where we are teaching people not only the tools of yoga, but how to use them appropriately in the right context. This is the core of what. And
That's amazing.
that's when it becomes, the tools get much more what we call potency. And the goal of Viniyoga is also not to teach the same things to everybody or ask people to become same versions of each other, but actually our philosophy is we want to help people become the best version of themselves.
Beautiful. With this.
Because it's like I always give the metaphor of the sun. You see, the sun is the same sunlight that is coming to the plants or the seeds or whatever. But you see, this sunlight will make a mango and a papaya a papaya. It will not make a mango a papaya or a papaya a mango, right? So in the same way, yoga is working with prana. Prana is like sunlight that brings out our best potentials. I can't become like you. You can't become like me. You can become like you, and I can become a better version of me. That's all. So that's the goal of our tradition. We are not trying to make everybody a photocopy of each other, but we are trying to make each one become the best version of themselves. That's our goal. So we don't want
And
clones. We want to encourage each
yes,
person's individuality.
authentic living. That's something we stand very
Yes.
strong on here. Yes, beautiful.
Authenticity is our truth.
Mm.
Yeah. Satya
So,
is authenticity.
Satya,
Yeah,
did you
it's
say?
authentic. It's our truth.
Yes.
What I can be. I'm a man. That's my Satya. I can't be a monkey. You know, I could try, but I'll fail.
Yeah, we get the picture. So wanna just close this chat with a case, just an example of someone very typical that comes through our doors, and I just wanted to hear what would you recommend them to start with a practice. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yep, great. So our clients, as I said earlier, they're usually in their 40s, early 40s. They've got families. So let's be more specific. They're a female. They've got young kids under 10. They live a full life. They're running a service-based business. Overwhelm, anxiety, feeling low, agitated, and energetic is very common to them. The roller coaster is very common for them. They're doing a lot, but they're very fulfilled as well. And at the same time, when they meet someone like me, their coach or consultant, they'll often share that they're always living with an inner anxiety. There is this inner state of anxiousness, and they wish they felt more calm and in control daily. And this is something that they would really, really appreciate cultivating more of. But also they feel like, if they go to a retreat, yes, they'll experience it there. But as soon as they come back to life, it comes back. And they know it's related to, something that's going on internally. But anyway, they're always feeling like they're not doing enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough of this or that. So there's always this anxiety brewing within them. What sort of a practice would you recommend to them, someone like them?
I'm assuming all this is also people, because they've got so many responsibilities, they are short on time, right? So that's why the same 5-minute approach I would give, one time 5 minutes in the morning and one time 5 minutes in the evening, 5 minutes in the evening. And what I would ask them to do in these 5 minutes is have a simple practice of pranayama with a small formula. The formula is like the exhalation is double that of inhalation. So for example, if they're able to do 2 seconds inhale, they do 4 seconds exhale. Or if they do like 3 seconds inhale, they can do 6 seconds exhale. So the exhale is always double the duration of inhale. So repeat that for 5 minutes. Don't worry about how many times you're doing, but just keep repeating that. Inhale, 2, exhale, 4, inhale, 2, exhale, 4, or inhale, 3, exhale, 6. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. This is because the extension of exhale is very, very strongly related to what we call relaxation response. So the more they are extending the exhale, the body goes into a state of relaxation. So when these women, they need to feel less anxious, they need to relax. So this is what I would suggest for them to start with. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon. I think it shouldn't be difficult for them, and it will be quite helpful. And if they want to make this more potent, they can hold just a little ball in their hand, like a tennis ball in each hand. And when they are inhaling, they are gently squeezing it. And when they are exhaling, they are releasing it. Just do this with that formula. 1 inhale, 2 exhale. It should work very well to start with for most cases, because that'll create what is called a relaxation response.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience will find this so helpful, very practical and doable. Anything else that you'd like to add today before we conclude the chat?
No, thank you. Thank you. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope that this new year you can make a commitment to take care of yourself by making a small investment of time each day to start with, and slowly grow it. I'm sure your life will become better. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been 2 years, but I'd love to see you more often, of course. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and your light with our audience. It's been very, very refreshing and really practical as well. So easy to understand. We look forward to having you over again very soon. Not such an extended period of time later, but let's make it sooner than later.
Whenever you want.
Thank you. Dr. Desikachar, it's been a pleasure, and we wish you a happy new year as well. And I look forward to seeing you very shortly again.
Namaste.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. And if you have any questions, comments, or any thoughts about this episode, do pass on a comment, write a review, or send a message. I'll put all Dr. Desikachar's details in the description section, his website, his upcoming workshop and seminar, as well as how to work with him privately to improve your pranayama and yoga practice. And thank you for tuning in once again, and we look forward to sharing with you more valuable episodes just like this one very soon. Thank you, Dr. Desikachar.
Namaste.
Have you been thinking, when is it going to be the right time to do your business and marketing activities? Like you spend so much time serving clients, engaging with others, and trying to help everybody else. Well, this is the exact reason we created the 90-day new client bootcamp, and this is designed for the procrastinators that are also excellent service providers like you. If you are interested in joining it, we are opening the doors on the 15th of January. I'd love to welcome you. Please check it out. We are preparing it in the background. Please check out the link below and get started from there.